What's up, guys? It's Emil, also known as Kitty's Riftbound, and today I'm here talking to you about the best decks in the upcoming Unleashed format that will release in the US and North America this Friday, and you'll probably be having constructed nights next week. So, to do that, we're going to take a look at the tournament results from yesterday. This was an online 2K uh, tournament on TCG Arena and definitely some really interesting results. Some stuff I expected, some stuff I didn't expect. Let's get into it. So, probably the first surprise, at least for me, and maybe some other people, is that Azir came first. And honestly, Azir was on my radar because of its performance over the last two regionals, obviously winning one. And yeah, I mean, the deck was already good. It has Arise, which is one of the most, busted signature spells or really just cards in the game when it gets going, when it resolves. Uh, and Azir just got a little bit stronger this set, mainly through the addition of Soul Sword, which is just another one of it. Just increases the consistency of hitting that turn one on the play. And whereas a lot of decks you don't want to run too many, turn one plays, Azir doesn't really care if it draws, that one drop later in the game. It lets it still make uh, another Sand Soldier token. It lets it scale up for when it eventually plays Arise. And so, yeah, that's just, it's an innocuous thing. It's a one energy plus one. They don't run any, experience synergy. Doesn't matter. Just having the nine versus the six makes a pretty big difference. The other big card that I saw, and I think most people would have predicted was going to be good in this deck, was Sacrifice. Being able to reaction speed, kill your unit, draw two, and ramp a rune for one is just very, very strong. There's also some really good synergy between Sacrifice and cards like Brutalizer, where you can equip a Brutalizer to a Sand Soldier token. It becomes 5 might. You send it in, you kill something, you sacrifice that, draw two, ramp one, and then you equip the Brutalizer to another one. Go take the other field. It's just yeah, it's just very strong. That's a one mana, one recycle net play that costs you one card, and you draw a card. You get to go through your deck. Like you draw two, but you end up one, obviously, because sacrifice is a card you have to use. The interesting about that is it seems like that means that Death Grip has fallen out of favor a little bit, at least in this list. The other interesting thing is there's one back off here, which is just a very strong card. It kind of is like fight or flight in some ways because it stuns, so it kind of pushes back an attacker at action speed. But then you can also hide it to do it at reaction speed. It's obviously not quite as strong as fight or flight because you can't hide it and then reaction speed like save one of your units, for example, but still a very flexible card. It draws you a card when you play it from hand if you don't, feel if you're not in a position where you feel forced to use it at reaction speed or where you have the mana up. Um, but yeah, the other interesting thing is Cole the Week, which I think everybody was aware, and we'll talk about this more in a minute, that Aurora was going to be a pretty big meta player in this set. And so it's just interesting to see Cole and the sideboard, like all the Aurora cards sideboard, and there's no main board salvage, which we saw sometimes last set. But yeah, I mean, I guess if you're playing Aurora, you obviously you probably side in most of these cards. They're all good against Aurora. Not so fast will counter like Elder Dragon ability, for example. Salvage obviously destroys the Aurora. Cole kills whatever they pulled out with the Aurora. So it makes sense. Like it seems like a deck that at least post sideboard is pretty well positioned to give Aurora some trouble. So I think this deck is like a terrific meta read in a meta where Aurora is going to be a big problem. And I was talking with a friend about this yesterday, but there's definitely some deceptive skill to this deck, which on a surface level might look mostly on rails. But there's a lot of little things you can do while playing this deck to push your advantage. Um, 3 to 5s in main as the only counter spell is pretty interesting. But makes sense when you see you can defy a catalyst. You can a lot of the best spells in the game right now are defiable. And one not so fast. Not so fast, I think, is a little bit out of favor. It's a little expensive. You can defy most of the things your opponents are using. Not so fast, is good against abilities. It's good against Falling Star, but I'm not sure how prevalent, Falling Star type removal will be in this format, at least as of now, especially looking at the top 8 and beyond. Next up, uh, we have Sivir in second. And I just want to say that I'm not sure where Azir lands in terms of like in the power rankings, but like I said, like if Aurora's strong, Azir is a great answer to Aurora. It seems like, and because it's first it's fast, and second it has all the yellow hate pieces you want that kind of are typically seen as the best answers to Aurora. I'm not sure it'll stay, super strong, but we'll see. It's a deck that you can adjust to if you're, in terms of playing your own gear hate. But whenever, red and Thermo Beam is a little bit out of the meta, uh, Azir and Arise become pretty problematic. Um, I guess the other thing to note about Defy is it counters a lot of the most popular counter spells, like the purple ones that people can use to stop Arise. So you can play Arise on with 7 mana up, and you have this Defy in your back pocket to make sure the Arise resolves. But yeah, so the next deck is Sivir, and I'm gonna have my Aurora discussion here. There's a few Aurora decks, and I'll go over maybe the merits of each one individually. But yeah, I mean you play Dazzling Aurora, you play 3 Elder Dragon, uh, and you resolve the Dazzling Aurora, and Elder Dragon comes in and just kills a bunch of stuff, and then has this passive effect where if your opponent units take any damage whatsoever, they die. Very, very strong. Um, Purple also got some additional consistency cards that it really likes. In set one, if you're playing Aurora, you kind of had to do this, you know, uh, weird gear package, or just like pray that your stack decks were enough. That those were like the best lists in Houston. Like they didn't run much draw outside of stack deck, because the other draw cards were just a little inefficient. It meant you had to cut down on interaction. Well, now you have cards like Scryer's Bloom, and then Lunar Boon, which just kind of lets you go through your deck without sacrificing too much. So the consistency is high for sure. Um, then you have Flurry of Blades, right, from Origins, which kind of seemed like a whatever card, but uh, turns out with with Elder Dragon and its reaction speed, like don't forget that its reaction speed, that's really really strong. This deal one to all units at battlefield, so not even just the battlefield, one battlefield, all battlefields. So it just your opponents have to sit there and be a little bit afraid. It's pretty much the same reason that Bullet Time is strong in Misfortune, and maybe that's one reason to favor Sivir over Misfortune, is that Bullet Time was a really good spell for Aurora, but Flurry of Blades does pretty much the same job with with Elder Dragon on the field. Uh, this was about the split I was predicting in terms of units, except so three Elder Dragon, two Mind Splitter, because at least in my testing, I saw that Mind Splitter's fine to hit, but you just want to hit Elder Dragon. You need more than three units, but you just want to hit Elder Dragons. I think the Baron is interesting. I'm not sure we'll see it. The whole set, but maybe I'm wrong. It just seems like a little bit of a liability, especially if yellow becomes very prevalent. If you hit Baron first and they just Cull the Weak your Baron, now they can score 3 points on a turn, which is not great. Like you don't want that to happen. So I just feel like Baron is just kind of it can be a liability, though it is very very strong. Uh, and I just want to hit Elder Dragons if I'm playing Aurora. Uh, there's really not that much else to say about this list. The sideboard is interesting. You have Fading Memories, which is good into the mirror. You have Abandon, which counters a lot of big spells. Like there are unchecked powers and stuff and going around right now. Um, and then the other new card is Heedless Resurrection, which is just good because you hit an Elder Dragon, and you can go in and conquer it. If anything goes wrong, you just go okay, reaction speed, uh, two and a purple. I'm just gonna sack my my Elder Dragon, and I'm gonna play another Elder Dragon because that's one of the reasons Lunar Boon is good, or Invert Timelines. You don't want to be playing Elder Dragons from hand. You just want to, you can just toss them with Lunar Boon and then bring them back later with Heedless Resurrection, or with your Last Rites. When you equip it, you just recycle them back into your deck. You're not trying to play them off the Last Rites. You're just trying to recycle them back in your deck so you can hit them again and again and again. I think everybody was aware first we all saw Baron. We're like, that's a cool Aurora card with some interesting implications. And at least when I saw Elder Dragon, I was like, what the heck? Like, what, what, like, what are they? Why does this exist? Because this card can only really be played off of Aurora. There aren't really any decks that can, play this from hand and feel happy about it. Like, I guess like volley can ramp up there. I don't know. I don't think so. Like occasionally it's gonna happen, but um, yeah, this card just is such a huge upgrade for Aurora. I mean, we all knew how Aurora could play before, except the difference was, if you had a way to deal with the Aurora, even if it resolved like twice, you weren't necessarily automatically out of the game. They're hitting Mind Splitter, they're hitting Dead Bloom Predator. These are both impactfful cards, but not like, hey, I win the game on the spot cards. I think the issue with Aurora is that uh, they hit an Elder Dragon, they 3 for 1 you, and then you need two cards to kill both the Elder Dragon and the Aurora. And, if they manage to kill your Aurora, uh, you're fine. Like, you still have an Elder Dragon on board. You've resolved an effect that kills between 1 and 3 units. A lot of times it's going to kill at least two. Probably three is like not. It's not an edge case. It happens all the time in a matchup where your opponents are kind of forced to like get on board and score points. If you can time it properly, you can minimize the losses down to like 1 unit, but it's hard to play around. It really this card is just very very strong so long as Aurora exists. And if I were predicting bans, they're not going to ban Elder Dragon because in a vacuum, for 12 and Recycle 4, this card is pretty fair because, like I said before, it's very hard to play. Same with Baron, it's a pretty fair card. But being able to cheat it out with Aurora, there's a reason this card costs 12 in Recycle 4 and not 9 Recycle 2, is what I'll say. And being able to cheat it out is, anything in this game that lets you cheat on like power costs, especially, but also energy and power costs, is yeah, like it's inherently. I'm gonna give it a little bit of a side eye because that seems to be a consistent theme. Like the two strongest things in this game are cheating on costs and drawing cards. That's the case in a lot of games, but this lets you actually cheat on costs and draw a card. Because the way to think about Aurora is you are not only just playing the unit free, you're actually drawing a card, right? You're drawing Elder Dragon, and then you're cheating it out. And every turn that this resolves, more the amount of cheating that you're allowed to do effectively just goes up and up and up. Uh, and yeah, it's just really hard for even the best situated decks to deal with this because you just need uh, well timed answers in your hand, and if you miss those answers, which happens, good luck. Uh, Sivir is an interesting choice. I guess I'll talk about why maybe she's specifically good. Um, Being able to uh, recycle a rune and then just make a gold is not bad. Though, if I'm being honest, I don't really see what this deck has over Misfortune Aurora. Personally, I think ganking is just has more utility. Uh, and I think this kind of unfortunately goes to show that just like the orange purple shell of Aurora is just very strong, and it doesn't really matter what your legend and chosen champion are. It's more going to matter how the variance of your individual run goes in terms of like, is it a Sivir or a MF that's going to finish in the top eight? Though maybe I'm missing something, and if so, feel free to let me know in the comments. Um, yeah. Then we have Master Yi in third. And Master Yi is really cool. I hated Master Yi Aurora in set one. I just thought it was like a really dumb deck where you're like basically praying to high roll a lot of the time, and that's why we saw the transitional sideboards where people would go into like a mid range build after game one or vice versa. Uh, I still kind of hate this deck because I still think you have to high roll somewhat for it to pay off. The difference is before, like, you had to, high roll and hit your Dead Bloom at the perfect time, and most of your other hits were bad. Well, now we've got like way better options. We have Elder Dragon, which is just infinitely better than a Dead Bloom hit, obviously. And then the second upgrade that you see here is Vile Maw. And that's good because before, your second biggest card that you could hit off this was a White Flame Protector, and you didn't get to use the +8. Vile Maw just comes in, and it's just a big guy. Uh, Sometimes like you don't hate to have it in hand. But yeah, I mean, this is a high roll deck. It's got the Flurry of Blades combo with Elder Dragon. It's got Zanya's, so your dragon's a little bit protected. Uh, the having the two gear makes certain gear hate options worse, certain better, but it's the same thing. They run triple back off, which is definitely a big upgrade. It's kind of like green. I discussed it earlier in the video. It's a little bit like Fight or Flight, but it's a little bit worse in terms of like interaction, but it can draw you a card. Um, you can use it to cycle earlier in the game, for example. So just gives Yi one more way to like look for the Aurora. And then you have the Rengar Trophy Hunter, which is just a good card. It's in the sideboard. I think you're the problem is like it's fine to hit a Rengar off Aurora, but it's kind of like the previous list we looked at. It's just so important to hit your Elder Dragon that like you don't want to dilute it with something that's just okay or good. Though the nice thing about Rengar is you can play it from hand earlier in the game. You can I think most people know about this interaction, but you can play it to a battlefield where there are enemy units. That means if your opponent swings in, what you can do, like on an open battlefield, what you can do is you can just play a Rengar. It's considered the defender, so it gets the Wuju Bladesman passive, and you've just played an 8 might defending unit for 5 in an orange, and that's obviously a very very strong interaction. Um, However, I'm not sure how mid range E does into Aurora, which is maybe the reason why I think mid range E in the current set of Unleashed is really really cool. Has a lot of fun, strong play patterns, but if you're just gonna get high rolled by someone playing an Elder Dragon Aurora list, it's kind of like what's the incentive? You have to play a list where you can make a bunch of misplays, or you can play, a deck that you just draw cards and hopefully you find your Aurora and then you hit an Elder Dragon and then you kind of win the game. Um, so yeah, I think the Yi Aurora list is worse than the purple orange shell. For sure, it doesn't have like the recursion of last rites or anything like that, but it's it works. And something we're gonna see is that like, hey, if you're an orange, uh, congratulations, you can play Dazzling Aurora, Elder Dragon, and Flurry of Blades, and you have a real deck. You have a real deck, and or it's gonna be viable. Like I'm not kidding when I say that like Garen it might be viable based off the color combination alone of having orange and then yellow giving it access to it might be decent in the mirror pretty much, um, which is says something about the power level of Elder Dragon and how much it does for Dazzling Aurora that maybe a deck like Garen is just going to be yeah, it's just going to be viable because it has access to those two cards, three cards if you include Flurry of Blades, and I'm not sure that's healthy for the game, and I'm not really looking forward to going to locals and playing against Dazzling Aurora all the time. I doubt most people are. I think the only people who are people who plan on playing Dazzling Aurora, and it kind of sucks that yeah, again, like you can play like a mid range list and you have to think a lot and be very careful and play on this edge and draw well. And then the Aurora list is kind of like you just have to draw well. There's really, like, there is skill to playing Aurora list, don't get me wrong. It's just the floor and the ceiling is a lot tighter than on a lot of other lists. Like, you can only play Aurora so poorly, and you can only play Aurora so well. And I think, as someone who likes this game for the strategy, it's a little bit disappointing to see this maybe be the best way to play the game. And I know people didn't like Miracle Draven, but playing Miracle Draven or the Miracle Ezreal shells and like Control Ezreal, wasn't easy. The game did not play itself, and while it certainly was too strong and out of line with the rest of the game balance and design, um, I think it's good when the hardest decks to pilot uh, are like that because they have the highest ceiling in terms of performance, and so a good player, a well practiced player, can do very very well with them. And I think it's a little bit disappointing when you can get the best result playing most consistently playing a deck that doesn't have nearly as high of a skill ceiling. Uh, that's probably the last Aurora deck I'm going to talk about because, as you can see here, five of the top eight decks here were Aurora. This eighth place Master Yi was not, but you have two Misfortune Auroras, two Silver Auroras, a Master Yi Aurora, and yeah, I mean, yeah, I don't know. I don't want to talk too much more about Aurora, but I think I've said my piece. Then we have LeBlanc, which I know is and so LeBlanc came in fourth, and I know a lot of people are like looking forward to LeBlanc, and so is I. I tested it quite a bit. Um, and this list is really interesting. It's not uh, really that similar to anything I've built. Um, I personally don't like the Karthus, but um, you know, I guess maybe my analysis of that is wrong. Uh, you have something that's interesting here that I think I do agree with is playing the yellow LeBlanc as your chosen champion because it just lets you it's just a strong unit and it lets you just get the cards you need to keep triggering the LeBlanc passive, which requires that you discard a card. It's got a strong early game. If you have a Karthus on board and you have this yellow LeBlanc trigger, you're drawing four cards off a reflection copy of LeBlanc, and that's obviously very very strong. And then you have Glass Mixologist. You can bring back the LeBlanc, bring back one of your two drops. Um, I do have to say that I still am not in love with this specific list. I think LeBlanc is a very hard deck, and I think we're going to see a lot of innovation and testing and people trying different stuff because LeBlanc has a lot of options. You can go like in this kind of Death Knell style of build, where you're trying to like trigger a bunch of ruined Rexes, which kind of pun intended, ruin your opponent's life if you have a card that's on board and you just deal 8 and your opponent has to consider every time they try to trade with it what they're gonna get killed because of that. If you have multiple Karthuses on board, this dies, it deals 12. uh, I think this list though has like really good bones. um, I just wonder if for example, I wonder if there's some adjustments that can be made in the early game package. I do think Ruined Rex is pretty good. There are there, for example, there's like Otacon, which is in the sideboard, which I think is very good into um, it's very good potentially into Aurora because you just kill anything they have there. It even works against Baron because it's not a chosen or targeted ability. But it dies to Elder Dragon, so it's I don't know. It's tough. But you can play it, and then you can like reduce. You can sack like a Ruined Rex or something, and play it for 4 and 3 energy or whatever, 2 energy, and it's good. You just you then you copy it with the signature spell. The one thing that concerns me about LeBlanc is if Vex is a big thing. However, and I'll talk about this after, Vex did not have a big showing at this tournament, though I do think it's important to talk about the fact that, this was a 2K tournament, but there were only 84 players. A lot of good players, a lot of very good players, which is why I still think the results are worth looking at. But this isn't a regional qualifier 1,500 person sample size. So just keep that in mind. Don't look at this and go, oh, Azir is the best and LeBlanc is the only other good deck. I think there are other good decks in the format. I think the one thing you can take away from this is that like, hey, yes, Aurora is pretty strong. It's pretty meta warping. And LeBlanc probably does all right into Aurora because it has this death rattle stuff going on. Maybe having these extra little guys is like good against like the Elder Dragon, for example, because you can kind of spam stuff and you don't care if your stuff dies that much. Sprite Fountain is just like an insane tempo card. It's maybe the best 2 drop in the game. It does have that recycled blue, but making 6 might worth of accelerated units effectively for one card on turn one, of course, spread across 2 turns, but still is uh, very, very strong tempo play. It puts your opponent in this weird position where, if you play this going first, you get to score 2 points before they even do anything. If you play this going second, uh, you go and kill one thing, they're forced onto the other battlefield most of the time unless they want to spend a combat trick or something, or removal on your token that's going to die anyways. And then you just get to go back in with your second sprite and contest. And hey, if they want to spend something to save their 2 drop, uh, as the person playing the sprite fountain, you're probably totally fine with that. But yeah, I do think that if Vex were very popular, it might be a little bit harder to play LeBlanc because of the unit that just stuns things. I also think the Deadly Flourish is interesting. I think it could be useful against something like Azir, though I'd be shocked if this was included as like a meta read against Azir. Though maybe I'm wrong, and maybe people are being careful to prepare for things like Azir. I actually think Deadly Flourish is maybe like a tech for the mirror, because getting to kill your opponent's Karthus in the backline is obviously very strong. You have the Death Grips, and you have 3 Sacrifice, which is obviously just an insane card in LeBlanc. You make a copy of your Ruined Rex on your, your beginning phase. When the temporary trigger goes, you can react to the temporary trigger, and you can sacrifice something that's about to die anyways. Draw 2 and channel a rune. And this deck needs cards. It just needs a bunch of card engine stuff. Um, and so this accomplishes that game plan. It also recycles quite a bit, uh, and this deals with that. And it again, it has the yellow, so it definitely pairs into a rare Aurora a little bit better than a lot of other decks. Um, and it has the main board calls. I think it's interesting that it only runs 2 salvages in the sideboard. Uh, I think it's I think a lot of these cards in the sideboard are kind of cool. Maybe trying stuff out. I'm not sure what the Bellows thought process was. Like, maybe it's just a little bit of Victor or Azir respect. And once again, Shadow's Call just for a little bit more draw in the matchups where you feel like you need it. And then Tactical Retreat, I think, is a really good card. Especially in an Aurora meta where Elder Dragon's coming down, we might see it pop up a little bit more, just because it can save your stuff from Elder Dragon. Um, and yeah, I mean, otherwise, Star Spring is kind of interesting. Everybody knows about Windswept, like the ganking, because you make a copy and it's ready and you can just gank over, and then Duskrow's Lab is pretty much made for LeBlanc. But Star Spring is the first time a player plays a non-token unit here each turn, they may move another unit they control to its base. So, you conquer with one of your 2 drops, and then you drop a ruined, and you make a copy of the 2 drop or whatever, and then you drop a ruined Rex or Glass Mixologist on that battlefield, and then you move the ready copy that you just made back, and you can go contest the other battlefield. So yeah, LeBlanc, is a deck that I think people saw in release and were like, hey, this looks like it could be strong. And then at least I and maybe some other people looked at some of the other releases like Vex and were like, I'm not sure about that. And I think it's really interesting. There's no Unchecked Power in this list. Unchecked Power is a card that's been discussed a lot recently. Uh, there's no Imperial Decree or anything, so that the Bella's Breath doesn't have that kind of attempt at a combo going for it to deal with big stuff. And so I think that's kind of notable. Uh, Again, like the rest of this is below it. These next 3 are Aurora decks, which we've already discussed. I'm not going to rehash it. Um, and then we have mid range Yi, which I think is a really cool deck. that got a lot of really cool cards. We talked already about the Rengar interaction, which is somewhat busted. I think is maybe the right way to say it. It's like very very strong. Um, the chosen champion is cool. I think we're gonna see some experimentation, but you can't underestimate the benefit of having a guaranteed turn two play. It lets you build your deck very differently. Because what that means is that you have this turn two play. Well, guess what? You don't need um, yeah, you don't need more turn two plays, so you can go deeper into like this Ruin Runner and Rengar stuff, and you just need turn one plays and turn two plays. You have the Zanyas, the Poros, um, and then you have First Mate, which is a body, but really is there to ready things. You have the one White Flame. I think it's cool to see Charm back in the meta. It had kind of fallen out of favor in some cases, but it's obviously very, very strong in a list where you can, play a 5 mana defense for 8. It's the same thing with this 4 drop. Like, yeah, it's a 4 energy, 4 might. You're probably never getting to level 6 to get deflecting ganking. Doesn't matter. You have guaranteed access to it. You conquer something with it. Now it's a 6 might, and your opponent has to figure out how to deal with that. Triple back off, amazing card, obviously, as discussed before. Thwonk only as a one of, but as you can see, stun is just a very powerful effect. Triple on guard, triple discipline. Nothing too crazy here, other than the one of Alpha Strike is pretty cool. It's action speed, so if your opponent attacks into like your Rengar, it'll be at 8 might. You deal 8 might split across units at battlefields. Very strong removal spell. And as you can see, there's no challenge in here because I don't think there's a point in playing a card like Challenge when you have access to a card like Alpha Strike. Um, I think Master Yi is interesting too because you don't see it in the main board, but you see it in the sideboard. Trinity Force is a really, really good card into a meta that is like holding oriented, which right now we're just in like an Aurora oriented meta. But like if something like Vex were to become popular, I think having access to Trinity Force is potentially your answer to like these boards that seem unsurmountable if you're playing Vex, and Trinity Force comes in, and suddenly your opponent who thought they were just gonna hold the whole game and chill and just be like, okay, figure it out. Well, now you're scoring twice as many points on the hold. You're gonna take back. So unless they have some way to deal with the Trinity Force, suddenly the pressure is flipped. And then Auction and Sabotage, both, sideboard cards for the Aurora matchup. Just have to respect the Aurora. You're probably going to see like 3 to 6 sideboard slots in almost every deck that are almost exclusively dedicated to countering Aurora. I just want to scroll down here because I forgot. So Lilia is 19th. I think this list is, from what I remember, it's kind of running the same stuff that we saw win that tournament a while back. Oh no, it's not running the Heart of Dark Ice. It is running the triple unchecked power, but Lilia, pretty straightforward deck and list. Cool list. Scuttle Crab is definitely interesting, but I guess it makes sense to see what they have in their hand, and it just draws you a card. Nothing too crazy going on, but yeah, I know people are keeping an eye on it. I'm just gonna speed run a couple of these. There's a lot of these Ezreal decks which I actually haven't looked at yet, but you have Pike, which is really interesting to me. You just make gold and you hide it, and it buries the lead, so it's very interesting. Then you have the Vex, the purple Vex, which is just everybody knows this card is busted. Though apparently Vex itself didn't do that well here. Starcross, which is a card I haven't gone to discuss yet, but Starcross is one of the best cards in the set. and maybe the best common in the set because obviously bouncing two things is really really strong. But also it's a counter and purple to Elder Dragon because when the trigger for deal one to everything goes on the stack, you can react with Starcross and you can bounce the Elder Dragon in one of your units, and then it's in their hand, pretty much unplayable for at least a couple turns, and you save all your units, because when it bounces back, that deal one, just deals one. The Elder Dragon passive is gone, so they won't die for just taking one damage. Angler Beast is funny meta read. It does counter Azir. But yeah, just some classic control stuff. The triple gust. It kind of sucks that you feel like you have to play triple gust in an Aurora dominated meta because it's a little bit dead against Aurora. Though you can gust your own Ezreal, which is or Fizz, and replay them to do more stuff. So yeah, it's definitely interesting. Yeah, it's interesting to see so many of them do well. Again, interesting is no unchecked power, which is interesting to me. I just the last thing I want to do is I want to scroll down and see where the best Vex is. Okay, here we go. I hope I didn't miss one. I don't think so. I'm honestly shocked that the best Vex was 36th place. Personally, I've play tested that deck a lot and it feels pretty good. I'm just checking out this list. Nami is really strong. Sona is a strong card that I wasn't seeing for a while. Vile Maw obviously very strong. I don't love the green Vex personally. I think you just run like one of these in the Chosen and one more in case something just goes horribly wrong. I don't love Treasure Hunter. I think you just want more fans. You want more Mausers. You want more things. You're just trying to hold. And then, okay, yeah. And then here's the other thing. And I guess I'll talk about like I got to play holding deck like for the last month and a half or so. I played way too much Ari, which was a bad holding deck, and Spirit Forge. But what I saw with that was that when you're on the play and you get to play, and I'll probably make my own video about like Ari and Vex and that style of deck. But what I saw was that Grove of the God Willow, when you're on the play and you have access to that and you hit like the play line of like 2-drop into Sona, or like now 2-drop into Vex, depending on what kind of deck they're playing, your opponent is put in such a tough spot because they have to deal with your board because you're just drawing a card off the Grove. And Vex is a Grove built in that you don't have to worry about giving access. You don't have to give it to your opponent. The risk of Grove, you have to play it going first because if your opponent gets the Grove instead of you, now your mediocre Ari deck is also getting outdrawn like crazy, and it's very very hard to win the game. And so yeah, I think that needs to be the game plan, and Starcross is good. There's no Rebuke in here, which I think is, or like the new card, Existential Dread, which I think is maybe something that could be good. I'm not sure like Triple Defy is something you necessarily want to play because having like multiple counter spells in hand, so running 5 counter spells doesn't feel great. Also, I see no stack deck here, which is I'm gonna have to make a video about Vex on its own, and maybe I'll enter into one of these tournaments because if this is the best Vex is doing, like I think something's wrong. I do think Vex does have a hard time in some ways into Aurora and some of these other decks. So like it's tough. But like for example, like Vex into Azir, you know, should kind of be like it should be very easy matchup because Arise is a 2 turn play. You know, all your stuff will come in. They can't move. You can't do like an Azir play where you make a token and then play Azir and accelerate it in. Like you have so much space. And then the other thing, at least this isn't the sideboard, but Emperor's Divide is like this is your card for winning the game. You know, it's so impactful, and I saw this playing Ari that you know your opponents get very comfortable in this kind of lull of hey, we're both sitting here and we're both holding uh, and you know I'm happy to sit here and hold one at a time and you know eventually I'll do something and my opponent who's intent on just holding, you know, I don't have to worry about them. And then you Emperor's Divide and suddenly your opponent is caught pretty off guard because you know you wait till a turn where they tap out and you Emperor's Divide your massive board that you've just been developing this whole game and you swing back in on the other side and suddenly it's not oh we're each holding one at a time. It's like now I'm 2 points ahead now, and suddenly like you can do that when you're going second and you're behind. You come back and regain point tempo advantage, or you're first and you can you know in their mind they're strategizing. They're thinking they have okay well I have three turns to figure out how I'm gonna win this game and get them off this board. Well now you have 2 turns and I've probably just taken out a bunch of your units. And so I think, yeah, I think Emperor's Divide needs to be like a 2 of in the main, because it's just it's so strong. And then the thing is you can go down. Like I think it's very interesting that this person is running like some of these 2 ofs because and then only 3 of in terms of units is Sona, which makes sense to me. But the beauty of running a card like Stack Deck is that you can run 2 ofs and you can pretty confidently find them throughout the game when you're drawing as much as you do off Vex Legend. But anyways, that's my Vex tangent. And I'm just the one other deck I didn't look at that seemed like it did pretty decent was Diana. But I'm honestly gonna wait because I've already talked too much. But I guess the overall takeaways is that um, you know, uh, Azir is pretty good in a meta dominated by Aurora. Um, you know, uh, Aurora is just good. It's the meta defining deck right now. Um, and mid range E has legs. Ezreal control is a real thing, uh, which is cool. There is outside of the Aurora list, there is a lot of diversity. But what I will say is that it is a little unfortunate that certain decks just feel totally pushed out of the meta, and I would like to see that change, and maybe we'll find some answers, but also maybe I could see some maybe we'll get another round of bans because I'm not sure this Aurora thing is sustainable. And I think I think the worst part is a lot of people are just going to get frustrated playing into Aurora all the time. And you're going to have this, like, if you can't beat him, join him. Because this deck is very hard to beat, even for players who are very, very good at the game and are piloting their other lists, their non-Aurora lists optimally. And at a certain point, like, if you're not willing to put time into, like, perfectly, adjust your deck list and play perfectly every time to beat Aurora, your best option is to just also play Aurora. And yeah, I guess maybe at some point I'll talk about how my locals look within the first few weeks of this set. But yeah, I'm not really looking forward to 50% Aurora meta share. But yeah, let me know what you guys think about all this. What you think the best decks that weren't discussed and didn't make it up here are. Leave a like, comment, whether you think my opinions are terrible or good, or like I said, if there's something missing, and subscribe. It really helps me out. And I hope y'all have a good day.